So I want to start with probably the most important news of the morning. I heard that Fred and Murph won the inaugural Cleveland Media Pickleball Tournament. Is that correct? Now I heard the championship comes with an asterisk because I heard Mary Kay was like Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game. I heard that team would have won. Is that correct? Do I have that right? I have that right. Okay.
I don't believe that.
All right, so year two at the Greenbrier. We're excited. We're really excited to be back here. We had a great experience last summer. The staff here is great. It's a fantastic location for us to come together as a team and really just focus on us and set the foundation for the upcoming football season. As we go into training camp and as we go into, deeper into the summer, we're really excited about the group of players, coaches, and staff that we've put together this season. And we're looking forward to the next, 5 or 6 weeks as we get prepared for, Dallas on September 8th. We've got a long way to go, a lot of work to do, but we're encouraged by the early returns in camp, and we're looking forward to keep going and, kind of stack days together and ultimately reach the potential of this team. So with that, I'll open up for any questions you guys have.
Andrew, you were able to kind of resolve the contract situation with Amari, make sure he's here for camp. He spoke about wanting to stay in Cleveland past this season. I was curious if extension talks were kind of part of those conversations, or do you kind of want to wait and see how 24
Yeah, Daniel, I obviously have the policy. I don't talk about contracts. I don't talk about discussions that we've had with individual players. I think everybody here understands what Amari has meant to this organization and our affinity for him. He's an excellent player, outstanding human being. He's a really good professional. And one of the things that's interesting with Amari, assuming normal health, he has a chance to get to 10,000 yards this year. And he's probably about a year and a half away from having his, if you look over the course of his career, spending the most time with the Browns relative to other organizations. So all of those things are important to us. He's been a big part of our success last year, and we were glad we were able to resolve the situation coming into camp.
When you traded for Gio, I think you restructured first and then extended. So technically you can do that in the same.
Yeah. So Tony, nothing that we've done would preclude us from, extending him. That's correct.
How about Deshaun? How do you think Deshaun has worked so far this camp, and what is the outlook over the next few weeks?
Yeah, Mary Kay, we've been very pleased with Deshaun. I think you've all seen that he's really worked his tail off in terms of his shoulder rehab over really like the past year. Had a really strong spring. He's done a really nice job here early in camp. So we feel like he's in a great place both physically and mentally, and look forward to a big year.
And back to contract stuff real quick. Not about any specific player, but my memory serves me correctly. Last year in camp, he did multiple restructures.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you're going to be looking to do in this particular part of the calendar this year?
Every year is unique, Daryl. Without necessarily tipping our hand, we may or may not. But we do always try and operate with a multi-year time horizon and try and get ahead of as many issues as we can.
How encouraged are you, Nick Chubb? We've seen him out here running, and how encouraged are you where he's at?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Nick, he's Batman, right? Like we are incredibly pleased with the work that he's put in, the progress that he's made. He still has a little ways to go, but we're really happy to see where he is as we enter camp, and look forward to him to continue to improve the health of the knee.
Is there any kind of time? Go ahead, Scott. Is there any kind of timeline for when you might practice, or are you picking out a date in the season when you might expect to have him?
We'll deal with it day by day. Yeah.
And you guys should give a seminar on coping with injuries after last year. With the way it went, did that make you rethink? I mean, obviously, probably altered practices, what have you. Is there anything in terms of the roster to kind of build in protection in case the inevitable happens?
Yeah, it's a good question, Tom. I think the way we consider, I guess, attrition within the roster, it's twofold. It's one, the level of risk that you may have in a certain position group based on, look, every player that you sign or trade for or draft, they don't have the same level of injury risk. Some have maybe a more extended history. Some have been durable for their entire careers. So that's certainly something that we take into account when we build out a position group. And then the second piece of it is, it's why roster building is 365 days a year, because you can never have enough depth, and the groups we always joke, the groups that you go into the camp and you're like, oh man, we're really deep here. Like we're gonna either have to release a good player, we're gonna have to work a trade. It seems like those are the groups that you get wiped out with, first, that type of thing. So we are very, cognizant of that. That you can't build enough depth into the roster, but we certainly will die trying.
Is Deshaun able to throw every single day now, or will there be a cadence where he takes some days off, or how will you work that?
Yeah. So without going too specifically into his plan, there will be some level of cadence, but he's in a really good spot. The volume is at a he's got more than enough volume to do what we need to do.
Do you feel you need to increase your cap space to conduct business this season?
No.
Going back to Deshaun, I mean, it seems like a lot of the passes so far early are relatively short. Not. Is that part of the plan?
It's not. It's not. It just. I mean, I might disagree with that assertion, to be honest, Chris. I think, certain throws in the NFL that require a lot of arm strength, they're not always vertical and down the field. I think perhaps what maybe you've seen in the limited amount of 7-on-7 or teamwork we've done just happens to be that's where the progression took him.
Andrew, you and Kevin getting the extensions in June, just knowing you're going to be here together and the stability you brought here over these last handful of years, can you just talk about that?
Yeah, it's first and foremost, it's a huge blessing. I don't think either of us take it lightly. We very much realize that we are in a fortunate position. We have really good ownership who are really good people. We have an organization where we love working with the people on a daily basis. I have like the easiest head coach to get along with in like the entire NFL. And oh, by the way, he happens to be a 2-time coach of the year. So it's a really great situation. And we're looking forward to pushing the organization and pushing the team because we certainly haven't met our long-term goals yet.
Andrew, you feel clear about Cooper. So dialogue will continue with his agent?
I wouldn't get into any of those specifics, Tony.
Andrew, you were in the front office when this franchise was at its lowest point, and now you're in charge of the football operations where you feel like you're a perennial playoff contender and you're trying to climb the mountain of getting to a Super Bowl. Just where is your level of expectation or goals for this team this year?
So number one, just mentioning I guess really 8 years ago when I had my first stint in Cleveland, and I know this isn't the question, but I'm just going to talk about this anyway, Daryl. Everything that we went through during that time, whether it was like the lack of success on the field, the internal turmoil, just everything that went with it, it really does make you appreciate, certainly last year, but the past couple of years a lot more. And like, that's actually a cool part of the journey. Like I wouldn't trade that for anything because you grow and you learn, and it makes you not take the good days for granted. So I want to start off by saying that. In terms of expectation, like I really have two expectations going into every season, and that's for our organization to maximize our potential on the field, and for us to be able to handle adversity, however it comes, in a high-level professional way. And that's actually one of the things I was probably most proud of the team last year, that we had a bunch of different curveballs, and I felt like our players, our coaches, our staff, really just handled every one, regardless of when it came or how it came. And I was really proud of that group. And every team in the NFL is going to have those periods. You don't know what it is, whether it's an injury, a losing streak, whatever. But you've got to be able to overcome those moments or those stretches if you want to be playing deep into the playoffs.
How have you seen Njoku develop since you drafted him, and especially maybe last year? Where did you see him take the biggest jump?
Yeah, I think with Jeremiah, really from his rookie year, he's always made the high-end plays. Like he has, has matrix type athleticism where he just has rare movement skills, and he can play behind the line of scrimmage. He's fast. But where he's grown over the past 3 years is his ability to reduce his errors, because sometimes our greatest traits also become like our biggest negatives, and his aggression at times would have him, overcommit, and we'd make 2 plays, give 1 up, make a play, give 2 up, things like that. And I think that is something that's decreased over the past 3 years, and hopefully will continue to decrease as we go into year 4.
You don't have an extension announced, do you?
No, you'll be the first to know, Scott.
The quarterback situation from last year encourage you to keep three this year? Or
No, I'd say more generally, like I prefer to keep three most years. Now, I'm not just going to keep three, and there are, certain situations like the opportunity with Josh last year at the cut down. We felt like that was good for the team. But generally speaking, like we do believe in keeping three as long as we have three that we think are worth the 53.
isn't it easier to bring up practice squad or emergency situation this year?
Yeah, it is, but I guess if you think about it, Tony, like you're generally going to have a better quality player if they're on if they make it to your practice squad, like generally that's probably going to be a lesser quality than someone that you feel compelled to keep. So we'd like to be in a position where we can keep three every year.
Andrew, you've seen Mike Vrabel everywhere on the field.
Mhm.
It seems like he has kind of ever-changing roles as a consultant.
Mhm.
I'm curious what your interactions have been with him, maybe how he's maybe helped you on the personal side.
Yeah, Braves is awesome. He's awesome, and we are lucky because I think, and you all probably see it. We're probably on, on borrowed time with him. But we're going to maximize it as much as possible. I think he has such a unique perspective because here's a former, all-pro player, coached in Power 5 college, defensive coordinator, and then very, very successful head coach in Tennessee. So there's nothing that he hasn't seen or that he can't provide insight into, whether it's how we're practicing on the field, how we game plan, our player development and player support areas, how we think about, acquiring players, whether it's in the draft or free agency. So, we were certainly getting our money's worth with Mike, and we couldn't be more pleased to have him here with us.
Just to kind of piggyback off that, you mentioned you might be on borrowed time. This is a guy that I think most people consider one of the top coaches
Yeah,
in the league. So
yeah.
just to have that opportunity
Yeah.
to bring him in, how exciting was that? And how quickly did you guys jump in?
It was pretty exciting because I remember when Kevin and I were talking about it, we were like, do you think he'd do this? Like, do you do you think he'd do this, or he's gonna maybe want to take the year off with his family? And so we kind of came in softly, tactfully, and it was from the very beginning, oh yeah, I'd love to do this. Yeah, that'd be great. It's pretty cool because we had all we had known Mike from crossing Paresso Pass. Kevin was on a committee with him and everything, but to see him day to day, I mean, you would think he's a first-time NFL QC by how much he's sprinting up and down the field. So it's really, really awesome.
What type of energy does that bring to the guys then on the field to have them so involved to run around hands-on?
It's great. It's very competitive energy because Mike's a little bit of a trash talker sometimes, and he's a very active coach. So the guys love having him around.
Andrew, with the changes to the offensive staff this offseason, OC and really all of them, what excites you just about what they can bring to this one you've seen early on?
Yeah, I think there are two things that excite me most, Kelsey, about the offensive staff. I think first, they've come from a variety of different backgrounds. Most of them have not crossed paths in terms of working together, and to see how they've come together as a staff, as a working group, that's been really cool to see. And then the second part is just the diversity of thought that's within that room because they come from such different backgrounds. It's been pretty cool to see how that's how that's come together with building out the offensive scheme.
Andrew, how optimistic are you about Jeff Wills being able to get back out to practice with you anytime soon?
Yeah, we feel like he's progressing appropriately. We feel like I'd say Jed, among many of our guys who aren't necessarily all the way back, they're progressing appropriately, and they will hit the practice field at an appropriate time. So, although we have maybe a higher quantity of players that aren't full practice than you would typically want, we also feel fortunate that we're not sitting here, knock on wood, on the first week of camp saying, hey, such and such we just lost because for a season-ending injury or something along those lines. Oops, I'm sorry.
Would you include Conklin in that? You expect him to practice field at some point?
Yeah, I think all of our guys are progressing appropriately.
Following up on Kelsey's question about the offense, where do you think we'll see maybe the most significant changes from here, given the Ken influence and the rest of the positions?
I think that's probably a better question for Ken and Kevin. And probably secondly, I'd say we're only a few short weeks away from the preseason game, so.
Andrew, with Martin, I mean, when he was coming out in the draft, it just seemed like a lot of people didn't really know what to make of him. You guys obviously just saw something get him in the third round. Has he even exceeded expectations entering year 3 now with what you thought you might do with him?
Honestly, we had pretty high expectations for Markham, especially knowing where we were going to transition to defensively. So we're really proud of him. He is a diligent worker. He's really smart. He loves football, and it's actually been pretty cool to see him going from like young player to more like kind of veteran leader within the defense. We feel good that he's going to have another big season, and he's just done a great job for us.
How realistic is it for both Greg and Dalvin coming off of their surgeries to be available?
Yeah, no, I think it's entirely realistic. Like whether that happens in the next couple weeks, like we'll see and work through that. One thing that we've learned about injuries is that you can never fully project everything, but I think that's entirely possible.
Andrew, you can probably speak better than anybody to how David Njoku is run off the field and on the field too. So going back to from when you drafted him to now, how has he changed?
Yeah, I think people forget David was 20 years old when we drafted him, and if you think about, I don't know, maybe all of you guys were very, very mature 20-year-olds. I was not always. That was not always the case with me. And you think about now he's going into year 7 or year 7 or 8. He's a father now. He's been through the ups and downs, and I think oftentimes in our lives and careers so almost what I was talking about with earlier, Daryl, like the hard times, they really have us grow and learn the most. Like you're talking about a guy who was a first round pick, had a really good rookie year, got hurt, got to a point where felt like the organization gave up on him, got to a point where he was relegated to a lesser role, fought through it, wanted to trade, fought through it. Like we all grow and mature, and so I have a personal affinity for David. Seeing him go through all of that, and fun fact, he was actually my first stint here. He was my neighbor. We were in the same apartment complex, so there were times where he'd actually. I remember my car was in the shop, and he took me home from one of our away games, like that type of thing. So, I love David as a person, first and foremost, and I'm really, really proud of him.
Andrew, was there a point that the organization considered giving up on him?
Not while I was here, no.
Hey, Andrew, fans and media love to debate quarterback rankings, and I know that's not a concern of yours. Where
Yeah.
Deshaun, falls in line.
Yeah.
What gives you the most confidence, though, that he can play at that elite level that we've seen in flashes and haven't seen since he was, consistently since he was in Houston?
Yeah, I think it's just seeing him every day, seeing how he prepares, seeing how he works in practice, seeing how he relates to his coaches. I think our biggest focus with Deshaun is just making sure that he's available. I think the rest will take care of itself.
Andrew, the Haskins have a stadium decision they have to make in the coming weeks or months. From your perspective, where do you come out? Are you team build the dome, or do you want to stay on the lake?
So I'll say, first and foremost, from a football standpoint, any solution is like we're a yes, like two thumbs up, because any solution where we're improving our home environment, where we're improving the fan experience, like that's going to be great for us regardless of where we're outdoors and indoors. I know ownership, Dave Jenkins, our local politicians are hard at work on a solution. If you're asking my opinion personally, I personally think that we are like paying these guys to be athletes as opposed to gladiators. So I'd prefer like the dome solution. I'd prefer to be indoors. I think that's better for the team. And I also think being in the Midwest, with the elements and everything, it's better for our fans as well. It creates a better fan experience late in the year when we're making those playoff pushes. But I do want to emphasize, any solution's a good solution. We're happy whether it's a renovation, a build, whatever, because it just means that our home environment is that much more of a home field advantage here in Cleveland.
Andrew, you mentioned when David had requested trade, in just big picture-wise. So you had that, and you had the Green, and then with Amari, and you're able to handle all kind of different situations. But do you have a philosophy or things you rely on when it feels like it could be contentious, but you're able to get past it and do these plays?
I think the biggest thing, and this is something that I really took from Howie in my year in Philly, is so many organizations are either don't put time or afraid to build relationships with your locker room. and it's building relationships specifically in non-crisis times, because you're going to have conflict. It doesn't matter. I mean, look, San Francisco, they were just, in the Super Bowl this year. They're dealing with. Look at Kansas City last year with one of their longest tenured players in Chris Jones. Like, there's going to be conflict, no different than a family, right? Like, I mean, you guys have parents, siblings, like, everything's not always smooth sailing. And that's what allows you to have either difficult conversations or work through challenging situations, because, like, at the end of the day, there is an understanding of wanting what's best for the organization and the player, and being able to honestly have, like, maybe difficult conversations that are clothed in truth.
Do you think there's a difference in building a team that's based in a dome? Because when you were told
I don't think it's too much of. I really don't think it's too much of a difference. No, I mean, like, I guess the way I look at it is, like, you look at take Patrick Mahomes, take Big Ben, take Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre for most of their career, take Josh Allen. Like, those are some pretty tough elements, but they've been very pass happy teams. Take Tom Brady; they were pretty pass happy in New England. So I don't think there's like a huge difference in that regard.
Andrew, we brought up a lot of you, JOK, Martin, David, all guys that have developed on different timelines. Like Martin hits right away, David takes a lot of your mindset when it comes to player development. Where does that come from? And how have you sort of perfected practicing patience with some guys and letting them develop?
Yeah, I think so. I think you guys have heard me always say that development's non-linear. Like, trust me, I would be the first to tell you that I would love for it to be like, okay, here's where they are as a rookie, then here's where they are as a second-year player. Then, like, but it very rarely works that way. I mean, I don't know. I don't know this, but, like, think about your own career. Was your development as, like, a beat writer? Was that was that linear in nature as you think about when you started versus where you are now? And my guess is that it probably wouldn't be for most people in this room. And so it is a little bit of a case-by-case basis, but it's probably more so knowing the specific needs or specific areas that the individual needs to be supported at different points in their career, and then really try and leaning into those to hopefully shorten the development curve.
I'm not, a couple more?
Why don't we go Chris, and then I'll go you, Daryl. Yeah.
I'm not asking for talk about specific extensions or anything like that, but you're gonna have you have a number of extensions coming up in a relatively short. Do you sort of like a puzzle, like, okay, kind of playing out this, prioritize and how everything impacts, cap wise and finance?
Yeah, we do, Chris. It's timing, amount, how, what areas you want to lean into the roster. That all comes into play because we're all given the same resources in the NFL, and so you only have so many dollars to spend. So you do have to be purposeful in terms of how you map it out. But it's also why we are so proactive in that area, because we think it allows us to get ahead of different markets. We think it allows us to be more, dictate the action, so to speak, in terms of how we invest in the roster. Whereas if you wait and you wait and you wait, you're usually a little bit more subject to market forces, which may make building the team a little bit harder over a multi-year period. Daryl, you're ahead.
I wanted to ask you about young receiver development. Schwartz and DPJ got to see glimpses, didn't work out. This is year 2 for Sed. Seems to be a lot of optimism about what he might be able to do. You have guys like Mike Vrabel and Woods. Just what are your feelings about some of those young receivers and their progress and ability to contribute behind the 3 receivers you went out and got on the trade market?
Yeah, I feel pretty good, Daryl, and I think part of it is if you acquire a player or how you acquire a player, it might be relative to role or relative to expectation. Like when we took Donovan, the expectation wasn't necessarily that he would be a top 2 receiver. Now he was able to play the number 2 role for us at a high level in 2022. When you take Anthony, the expectation is like, hey, can he be a role-playing, vertical guy? Obviously, it didn't work out the way that we had hoped. We knew that as part of getting him in the late 3rd round, he did have a significant area of development in his game. But you knew that it may not always work out. But I think part of it is like we think of it probably baseline to what is the expectation for role, what is the expectation for their skill set, and not every player is equal in that regard. So maybe how we would react to someone hitting their goal or maybe someone not quite reaching their goal would be different based on the level of investment.
In the offseason, Jim Schwartz talked about like how being year 2 in the defense, putting in change-ups and kind of putting in different things. What are you excited to see from the defense in the second year of the scheme and what they can build off of from last year?
To be honest, Kelsey, more of the same from last year. They were pretty darn good last year. I think some of the tweaks, which I won't necessarily go into the specifics here, but some of the tweaks that Jim has put in, look, no secret, we love to rush with 4 and we love to play a lot of press man coverage. Now that offensive coordinators have had a year to look at what we did and maybe adjust, what are we doing to be able to have those counter punches in our bag, so to speak. And Jim's always very proactive in terms of staying ahead of the curve in that regard.
Good.
All right. Thanks. Stay dry, everyone.